Hi everybody. Thanks for taking some time to watch this video. My name is Erica and I wanted to share my story with you. The reason why I wanted to share my story is really because I want to bring to light the truth about abortion. I want women out there to know that there's healing, that there's hope, that there's freedom. And this does apply to men as well. The reason why I kind of have my focus a little bit more with women is just because I'm a woman and I've walked through post-abortive healing. So my desire is to really see women set free from the bondage of shame that comes with abortion and to really walk in the freedom that God has designed for them and that He desires for them. So my story, I'm going to bring you way back to 31 years ago. April 17th, 1988, I was born. And I was born then and adopted 4 months later. I was conceived in rape, and I found this out much later in life when I was 21 years old. I had two little kids of my own at home. I had been married at the time, and I really, really wanted to find out who my birth father was. I already knew my birth mom. I met her when I was 16 years old with my parents, and it was a wonderful experience. It was everything and nothing that I had expected all at the same time. And it really did fill this kind of void in my life that I felt like I had because I didn't know who my birth mom was. So I was really thankful for that opportunity and that experience. But years later, it kind of came back into my life. And I don't know if it had to do with just being a mom myself, but I just wanted to know who this other part of me was. Like, why did I have certain features or who did that come from? And all those questions that kids just tend to like have, but they know where that comes from, mom and dad. So for me, I just really wanted to know who my birth father was. And so I decided to call up my birth mom, and through that phone conversation, she let me know that she was raped, and that's how I came to be. And, hearing that at that time in my life, I really didn't process that. I told her I loved her and I was thankful for her choosing life for me and choosing my parents. And I was proud of her just for being so brave. She was only 13 at the time. She was 14 when she gave birth to me. So quite young. And, to make big decisions like that, I told her I loved her and I appreciated it. We really didn't talk much after that conversation. And, there's so many moments that now, being 31, I look back on that 10 years ago, just that conversation, and I often wonder like what my thought process was like. I don't really remember much other than not knowing how to deal with that. I didn't. I just kind of moved on with my life. And I think I thought I had kind of dealt with that information, but I just kind of shoved it under the rug. So that is that part of my life. And leading up to 2015, 2015 was the lowest point in my life thus far. It was a point in my life that a lot of brokenness leading up to it had kind of caused my life to completely fall apart. But in 2015, that was a part of my life that had so much brokenness. I had so much shame, depression, fear, anxiety, so many lies from the enemy consumed my life, so much so that it just dragged me into this dark hole that I truly felt like I had no way out. People could tell me that I had a way out. People told me that everything would be okay and it was brighter on the other side. But for me, at where I was at in that point of my life 4 years ago, it did not feel that way for me. And that's really where my story begins to unfold more. In May of 2015, I had my first abortion. I was 8 weeks pregnant, And I walked into a Planned Parenthood in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and they handed me a pill. They told me to take it before I left. They wouldn't even let me leave unless I did take it. I took it. I had no idea what was happening. They kind of told me what to expect, but I, at the same time, didn't know what to expect. I'd never done this before. I was pro-life. I was against abortion, but I was in a situation where I truly felt like I had no option. Um, my life around me was already falling apart, and I was already in shame and in such severe depression that trying to figure out how I was going to tell people that I was pregnant with someone else's baby was devastating to me. I didn't know how to do that. With that, as well as the pressure from the father of the baby to have an abortion, I felt like this was just what I had to do. And I justified it in my mind by saying, you know, I'm just taking a pill. So it's okay. I'm not actually doing anything. I'm just going to take it and just go home and I'll be okay. But I didn't know what to expect. And I went home and I took the other pill. And then a couple days later, I had to take another pill. And that was when the abortion, that's when everything started to happen. And it was awful and it was painful. And I went through it alone. And I didn't understand what was happening. You know, I knew in my mind what I was doing to my body and this baby that was growing inside of me, but there was still some type of disconnect. I didn't really understand what was going on. And I had no idea how this is going to affect so many decisions following. That led to things spiraling more out of control. I started having so much rage, anger, frustration, jealousy, more fear, more shame. So I was already in this like web of shame and lies and fear and anxiety and depression. All this darkness just surrounded me. And then choosing to have that abortion, that just made this, what was a dark circle, even darker and deeper and heavier. And I didn't know how to escape it. I was going through a divorce at the time, and having that on top of it, it made it feel like I wasn't worthy enough to be a mom to the 4 kids I had at the time. I felt like I wasn't good enough. Like, how could I choose to kill the baby that I was carrying, but I chose life for my other 4 kids, and how can I be a mom? How can I call myself a mom? So all of these things started just piling up on me more and more and more. And I just kind of ran from that. I wouldn't really call it a relationship, but you know, that relationship to another relationship, trying to cover up, you know, trying to kind of put band-aids over these wounds, thinking that that was going to help. Tried to, you know, move and make these certain decisions that would maybe cover up the pain that I was feeling. Until about 5 months later, it was about 3 months later that I found out I was pregnant again. Another couple months after that, when I had my second abortion. And this completely caught me off guard, even contemplating this, because when I found out I was pregnant the second time with the father of this baby, I thought about the first abortion a lot. I was heartbroken. I was like, I would never do that again. Like, nope. Like, but I wasn't okay with where I was at in life. I was still in that web of shame. I still was dealing with depression, with anxiety, with fears. I was dealing with a lot of stuff I was going through with my divorce at the time. I was trying to wrap my mind around what my life was like. And it was not good. I kept telling myself it was good. I kept putting it out there on social media like my life was good, but it wasn't. I was completely broken. Everything around me was falling apart. It was a mess. And no matter how hard I tried to pick up the pieces and fix it, I couldn't. So I found out I was pregnant and I was like, this is great. Okay, this baby is going to make everything better. But it wasn't. It wasn't. That wasn't the solution to the brokenness in my life at the time. And I kept kind of pushing through and saying that it would be okay. And then I decided that I was going to leave the father of the baby, the man that I was with at the time. It was a very unhealthy relationship, and it turned into where I was afraid for this baby to be born into this mess that I was in. I didn't want that for her, and because of just the influence of people in my life at that season, everybody said, well, if it's so bad, just have an abortion. Like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And that stuff just more and more over me. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't have another option. I don't know what to do. And so I went on social media and I told people that went to the doctor and I was going to be miscarrying the baby, because with this pregnancy, which was very different than the first pregnancy, everybody knew I was pregnant. It was known. I was showing already. I thought I was about 12 weeks along, due to what my OBGYN said. And so everybody knew. So I had to figure out a way. And so I put it out there that I was miscarrying this baby. I had already made the phone call to a Planned Parenthood in New Haven who said my insurance would cover it. It was great. I didn't even have to pay out of pocket for it. And I just completely numbed myself in that moment to what was going to happen, even though, yet again, just like the first abortion, I actually had no idea what was going to happen. I didn't. Like I said earlier in this video, with the first abortion, I understood what would be happening in the sense of what an abortion means. It is killing an unborn child. This baby inside of me is moving, is has a heartbeat, it's functioning, it's sucking its thumb, all these things that babies do. It's doing that inside of me. So an abortion ends that child's life inside the womb. I knew that, but there was that disconnect. I didn't even know what was going to happen. Nobody told me it was going to happen. I didn't know. Was it another pill? Was it something else? So 2 days after that phone call, I had driven myself. Again, I was alone. Nobody knew I was doing this. There was one person in my life at the time who knew, but was fully supportive of the abortion. But I went to the clinic by myself, and it was a Friday morning. And I walked in, I had an early appointment, and I had no idea what to expect. I was sitting in this lonely, cold, dark room in Planned Parenthood, and I didn't know what was going to happen that day. I really didn't. And what I would experience would be something that, years later, sitting here, I would want to share and in hopes to change other people's view of abortion and where they stand with pro-life, pro-choice. So they did an ultrasound and, checked my vitals to make sure I was okay enough for the surgery. And I'm thinking to myself, surgery? What surgery? What is happening? And I would ask questions here and there, but it was very much like, beating around the bush and not really getting to like what I was asking. I had an ultrasound, but they would not let me look at the ultrasound. I was not allowed to look at my baby. I found out that I was farther along than I expected. I was 14 and a half weeks, not 12 weeks. And I laid there having this ultrasound like, okay. And in that moment, having the thought to just walk out, but not strong enough. Like it was like I was literally crippled in that room. Like I can't move. Like I can't. I want to. Everything on the inside is like, go, get out of there. Like you're going to be okay. Like you can do this with this baby. But because of everything in my life at the time and how messed up everything was and how broken I was and how I was already, I didn't know how this could work out. I didn't know that it was at all possible to raise this baby. It did not seem possible to me at that time. And I couldn't move. I was frozen. And they brought me into this room and told me to change into this gown. And I sat in this chair and they gave me a pill to start labor at 14 weeks. They gave me magazines and they had some music playing, and there was about 15 other girls in that room waiting to have abortions. And I looked around and my heart was racing and I was sweating and I was tearing up, but I told myself to stop, that I just had to be focused. I couldn't believe it. And I still had no idea what to expect. few hours later, the doctor came in and said it was my turn. No hello, no how are you, nothing. Very just like serious, and wheeled me into this room, and it was cold, and they laid me on this table. They did a surgical abortion. And I won't share more in detail exactly what that is. At some point, that will be a part of my story and getting that out. But a surgical abortion is what they did is they take the baby limb by limb and remove it out of the woman. And I remember laying there on the table, and I was laying like looking to like my left side and just crying, but not making any noise. It was just tears. And nobody was there with me. Nobody decided to stop it. Nobody said anything. And all I kept saying was, where are you putting my baby? Where are you taking my baby? Oh, we'll take care of it. Oh, we'll take care of it. Where are you taking my baby? It was, nobody answered me. And I just went cold, like just blank stare, like numb, completely numb. And immediately into this sense of denial. The abortion was done a few moments later. And they said, well, you're not pregnant anymore. And they wheeled me out to the recovery room, gave me some medication, and that was that. And I drove home, and I wasn't pregnant anymore. And everyone told me I could start my life over and I'd be fine. And I believed it. I believed the lie that I could actually be fine. But I believed it so much that I lived my life that way. I just kept on loving my kids. And at the time I still had my 4 children, and I was divorced now, and I was, just moving on with life. I was starting to go back to my church. I met, a few months after that, I met my now husband and this incredible man of God. And I felt like I was okay. And more months passed, and then some years passed, and I kept telling myself I was okay. But nobody knew about my abortions. Nobody knew. Nobody. It was just between me and God. And so the summer of 2018, so just a year ago, God started doing some stuff in my heart with the abortions. And it kind of came out of nowhere. And what triggered it was ABC Women's Center is a pregnancy crisis center here in Middletown, Connecticut, where I'm from. And they had put out an email saying that there was going to be a support after abortion training in the fall of 2018. And this support after abortion training would make it so that women who wanted to be a part of like counseling women who had had abortions, so post-abortive women, that they were qualified and trained to do this. And something in me said, and I know now, like looking back, it was definitely God, because I was at no place in my life to even do this. But something in me said, I want to do that. That's me. I want to do that. And so I reached out to the director, and I said, I want to do this. And I signed up for it. So fall of 2018, I went to the support after abortion training, and I wept, because everything that this woman said, who herself was post-abortive. She started this amazing organization, and it's all over the world. It's incredible. But she shared her story, and I could relate because I had 2 abortions, and I knew what that was like. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. And I just wept. And I raised my hand in this room full of all these women that I didn't know, and I said, I've had an abortion. I didn't say that I had 2, but I said I've had an abortion. And they all just accepted me. It was the first time that I said something out loud, first off, and then to get that response, I was like, what? Nobody's like, not, shaking their head or why'd you do that? Or I was in awe. And I left that day feeling more empowered, but I still hadn't told anybody, not even my husband. So I sat my husband down at home about 2 weeks later. 2 weeks it took me to kind of muster up the courage. And I told him about the abortions. And after that, I started telling a little bit, of close people in my life here and there, as I felt like I was able to. And so January of 2019, I made the decision that I would be on the post-abortive ministry team at ABC Women's Center. Now let me backtrack a little bit because this is really significant. My grandmother, her name was Margaret Detzler, 29, almost 30 years ago now, she started this ABC Women's Center in Middletown, Connecticut. At the time it was in Meriden, but she started it. She was the founding director of it. And growing up, when I was really little, when it was in Meriden, she would take me as a little girl and just show me these teen girls that were pregnant, these women that were pregnant, these women that were getting counseling just to be a mom. And I was in awe. My grandma loved these women, and she wanted the best for them. And she wanted to give resources to them so that they could give their baby life and a life. It was incredible, her heart for these women. And in 2016, my grandma passed away. And as I spoke at her funeral, God spoke to me. As I sat down in my seat after I had spoke at her funeral, God spoke to me. That's what you're going to do. You're going to be there. And that to me was like, okay, I'm not planning on that, but sounds good. So then flash forward, right, to where I'm at then, January of 2019. And sitting in this room at ABC Women's Center, being with these other women who are all on this post-abortive ministry team. And we're talking about it and we're sharing our stories. Some are post-abortive, some are not. And they said that one of the requirements was to go through an 8-week post-abortive healing class. So that in order for example, for me to teach this class for other women, I had to go through it myself because I was post-abortive. And I said, no, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm all healed from my abortions. It's been a few years. I'm good. And because it was a requirement, they said, no, you got to do it because you have to understand how the curriculum works. And I said, okay. So I signed up for it. And let me tell you, first off, I had no idea there was such a thing as a post-abortive healing class. I had never heard that. And as I've been sharing my story over the last few months, that's been the one response that I get from so many women out there who will privately message me on Instagram or Facebook saying, that's a thing? And I'm saying, yes, it's a thing. And it is the very thing that will completely change your life if you've had an abortion or 2 or 3 or more. So I walked into this class the first day. It was a Tuesday night. I walked in ready. I had my Forgiven and Set Free book. I had all the resources I needed. And I said, I'll be good. Week after week, I did not leave that class without sobbing because every week God did something else. Every week, God was pulling back another layer to everything. Everything in my life was affected by those 2 abortions. Everything. How I was able to be a wife, how I was able to be a mom, a person, a friend. Everything was affected. And I didn't realize that until I walked into this post-abortive healing class and decided that I was going to take part in this. I realized how broken I was. I realized that I was living my life in shame. Now, prior to this class, I wouldn't have told you that. I would have said, no, I'm good. I know that God loves me. I know that God is for me. I know that God has forgiven me. But I didn't really know that because there was a disconnect. So I knew that here, but I didn't feel it here. So I wasn't really living my life the way that God wanted me to. So I walked through this class. I experienced incredible healing, miraculous things happening and taking place. I couldn't believe it. It was just like, it was like layer after layer after layer just removed from me by the grace of God so that I could walk out of that class 8 weeks later, a completely different woman, a woman of God, a woman who herself, me, even though I have had 2 abortions, I can say that I am not walking in shame. I do not believe those lies. I know I'm a good mother. I know what God has for me, and it is good. And that He is using my stories, everything from how I was conceived and raped to being adopted to the brokenness leading up to my abortions, to having the abortions, to then walking through the healing. And there's still so much more. But I know that God is using my story to change lives, to change your life. If you're post-abortive, if you can relate to the things that I've said with the shame and the depression and the deep darkness that consumed me, if you can relate, there is healing for you. There is victory over all of that. Because this is the thing, and this is what I came to not only know here, but then begin to feel here in my heart and really understand that the shame, the lies, that is not God. It is not God. This is what I learned. This is what I learned. When I laid on that table having that abortion when I was 14 and a half weeks pregnant, and I was looking onto my left or off to the left at the wall and crying, prior to doing this class, I was in a place where it would just be darkness and disappointment. But now I know that God was there the whole time. God was there the whole time. He was there. He saw it happening. He loved me anyways. He loved me anyways. And when I was asking the doctor performing the abortion, "Where are you taking my baby? Where's my baby going?" that God said, "I'm taking your baby. I'm taking your baby, and we're going home where she will be whole and she'll be there with her brother." And having that revelation, that changed everything for me. Because I knew that at the time when my abortions took place, I was not strong enough to love them. But my God was strong enough for me to love them for me. And I know that one day I'll see them again. And I know that I can hug them and laugh with them and love them and see them. Because I have that promise from God. I grieve their loss. I grieve my decision at times. But I don't grieve in a way that leads to despair and depression like I used to. I grieve in a way that gives me hope. Hope that I'm going to see my babies again. Hope because I know that they're with my Heavenly Father, that they're whole and they're running around up there and they're having the best time and they're just waiting for their mommy to come. And this is why I share my story. This is the truth. I'm a real person who has had 2 abortions, who has experienced healing and freedom. And I think, we read stories about women who have had abortions or people who are pro-choice and, it's just an abortion. It's just this, it's your body. You can do whatever you want. You have the choice. And I am here to share my story as a way of, there are other options. There are other choices. There is so much love for you. There's so much love for your baby. And there are resources out there to carry you through. But I want to speak specifically to the people out there, the women out there, the men out there who are post-abortive, who have they themselves experienced an abortion, whether they've personally had it or their partner has had the abortion. This message is for you, just to know that you are loved, that there is no judgment from me to you, because God did not judge me and God does not judge you. He just loves you. He loves you so deeply, and He's given grace for you so that you can walk in freedom, because God wants life. He wants life for us. And He does not want us, because of our decision to have an abortion, to be tied down to shame and lies. That is what the enemy wants for us, but it is not what our Heavenly Father wants for us. What He wants is freedom. I have always been pro-life, but until I was faced with those decisions and walked through that, it shifted everything for me. Now I'm at a place where I just understand my adoption so much deeper. I understand what abortion is, what it does, and I don't want that for anybody, because it might seem like it's a great, easy option. Like you can literally call Planned Parenthood and go in the next day to have an abortion. It is not the answer. It will only add pain. It will only add to the brokenness that you feel. It will not eliminate it. It will eliminate your baby, and that is not what God intends for you. And I know that God has more. He has more. So, you know, this is really like my first time doing this. I've been a writer for a little while now, and I've been sharing my story just by typing it out and sharing it on my blog or on Instagram or on Facebook. But God has called me into this, and I am so excited. When I walked out of that post-abortive class and God started really speaking more into my heart with what He wanted me to do, because I knew God did way too much for me to just sit back and be silent and be like, okay, yep, I'm healed from my abortions, but I'm just going to move on with my life. No, this has completely changed my life. And I never knew that God would use my abortion stories as a way to bring Him glory and for my good. I tried so hard for 4 years to just shove that under the rug deeper and deeper and deeper and just tell myself it didn't happen. I'm fine. God will use other things in my life as a part of my calling and what He wants me to do with my life. But God chose the very thing that I didn't think as a way to just bring freedom. And I believe that He has called me to use my voice to speak for the unborn, to speak on behalf of post-abortive women and mothers, and to share that there is hope after abortion, that there's healing after abortion, and that if you are facing an unplanned pregnancy, that you have other options. So so just know that, and just know that you're loved. You're loved. If you want to know anything else about my story, if you have questions, feel free to find me on Instagram. It's at Erica Lynn Kapp, ErikaLynnkap. You can also find me on Facebook, and there will be a link for my pro-life speaking page as well. But I'm here for questions. I'm here for people who need me to point them to some resources, but you're loved, and there's more for you. And I just pray and hope that in what I've shared in this video, that it can be something that makes you question if you're pro-choice. It makes you realize that there is hope and healing if you're post-abortive. And if you're neither and you're pro-life and you're just watching this, that maybe it would just open your eyes to know that there's other people out there who have themselves experienced abortion or are contemplating abortion, and we just need to love these women, and we need to support them and provide them with those resources, that there are other options. Thanks, guys.